everybody, it's Mr. Ray, and welcome to our OC study session. I am so glad that you all decided to join me this evening. Listen, it's Bible study. I have a great lesson planned for you all, so I'm going to dive right on in without any further ado. Now, we are still in our series called Powerless or Powerful. And while we're in the Old Testament and the New Testament, we are learning all about how people who are either named or unnamed, have a powerful position or no powerful position, are really powerful people. So last week we discussed Jesus, but this week we are going to the Old Testament to Judges. Yes, Judges chapter 7, and we're going to learn about a man named Gideon. And it's really Gideon's story, but it's the person who was with him that we'll find out is a very powerful person. So Judges chapter 7, verses 9 through 14. I'll be reading from the NCV, and the word of God reads, "That night the Lord said to Gideon, 'Get up, go down and attack the camp of the Midianites, because I will give them to you. But if you are afraid to go down, take your servant Purah with you. When you come to the camp of Midian, you will hear what they are saying. Then you will not be afraid to attack the camp.' So Gideon and his servant Purah went down to the edge of the enemy camp. The Midianites, the Amalekites, and all the people from the east were camped in that valley. There were so many of them, they seemed like locusts. Their camels could not be counted because they were. When Gideon came to the enemy camp, he heard a man telling his friend about a dream. He was saying, 'I dreamed that a loaf of barley bread rolled into the camp of Midian. It hit the tent so hard that the tent turned over and fell flat.'" Verse 14, the man's friend said, "Your dream is about the sword of Gideon, son of Joash, a man of Israel. God will hand Midian and the whole army over to him." Listen, this is powerful. And this is powerful for a number of reasons, because we have some major players happening right here. Gideon, who is the valiant warrior that God will use to save Israel, is actually in a bit of a predicament. Well, let's see. God said, if you're afraid, take Purah down with you. Now we need to understand Gideon started out with 22,000 men. And then God shrunk that army down to 10,000, and he shrunk it down to 300. Now you got to understand that while he's doing all of these things, that God is using all of this to get him prepared for a major purpose. So our title for tonight is Called by Name. Now, what does it mean when we say called by name? Well, I gave you a little bit of a hint, because remember, God said, if you are afraid, take your servant Purah with you. Well, who called him out by name? Did you say God? Of course you did. Yes, God called him out by name. So that's very important for us to understand, because remember, powerless or powerful. So that means that if you think you are not important, if you think that you don't have any value because you're just, and then you fill in the blank, remember, God knows your name and he'll call you by name. So let's go to our first point. And point number one will lead us to something very good. God ordained your purpose. Yes, God ordained your purpose. We all have a purpose. And at some point in life, you'll find out just what your purpose is. But Gideon is finding out his purpose. And guess what? Purah is too. And Purah is finding out his purpose because he's connected to Gideon. But the beautiful thing is, Gideon was anointed for a major task, and your purpose is great, but God is greater. Now, while Gideon is called to a major purpose, we really want to focus our attention on Purah, because Purah had one assignment. Yes, I know the assignment. Yes, he knows his assignment, and he has one. And he was called out by name for a great purpose. And God is greater than that purpose. So let's journey so you can understand how that purpose is so great, which brings us to point number two. Partnership in purpose. Well, let's talk about that partnership. Now you have Gideon, who is chosen to lead the children of Israel. into a major war and into a great success. You have Porah, who is a servant, a servant. So that's not a very powerful title, but he's called out by name because he has a great anointing and a great purpose. And then not only does he have a great purpose, but he's joined and called by name to be joined to Gideon. So you have someone who's chosen by God, and you have someone who's called by name to help someone who's chosen by God who just happens to be afraid. So you got to make sure you pay attention to that part. Gideon is chosen and anointed by God to lead this great army, but he's afraid. And God sent him help in someone who really didn't seem like they were very important. But God called Porah by name, and he gave him a specific assignment. Go help him out. Just if you're afraid, bring Porah with you. See, God knows what's deep down on the inside of all of us. He knows what we're happy about, what we're sad about, what makes us cry. He knows the beginning from the end. And even though we think we cast things out and forecast things out far, trust me, God is hundreds of years ahead of time of us. And so that helps us to understand several things. God will assign specific people to your purpose. Now, he didn't call just anybody out by name. He called Porah out by name. And that means that there are certain people in life who are literally assigned to your life. And some people, well, we always hear that people are assigned to us to hurt us, but there are some people in your life who have a purpose to help you. And Porah was called out by God to help Gideon. And one of the other things, not only was Porah called by name, but guess what? Everyone is not anointed or called by God for your purpose. See, as you journey in life and as you go through all the different things in life, you have to understand that you have some people who will be with you for a lifetime. And you have some people who will be with you for a season because they have an assignment in that season. And when they have an assignment, they have to stay until that assignment is up. And guess what? For the people who are supposed to be there for a lifetime, you can't shake them loose. But guess what? In all of it, God has a plan. That's right. God always has a plan. So when some people are called to your life, he has a plan. When others are not called to your life, God still has a plan. And that helps us to understand that when God aligns you with a God-ordained person or with God-ordained people, it is intentional. God does everything strategically, and God is intentional about everything he does. So he was intentional about calling Porah out by name. Well, why? That brings us to point number 3. Porah pushes Gideon into purpose. That's right. Porah pushes Gideon into purpose. You see, Gideon was already shaking in his boots a little bit, which is why God already said, if you're afraid, take Porah with you. But one of the main things that he had to understand was God was up to something even bigger. Now, it wasn't coincidental. I just told you God is strategic and intentional. So it wasn't coincidental that they just happened to go into the Midianite camp and they just happened to hear someone talking about a dream and the dream just happened to be interpreted. No, he needed the right person in his life at the right time to be with him, to push him into his purpose and encourage him. He needed a witness. He needed someone who was right there, who would be loyal and committed so that he would go with him into the enemy camp. Now, you really need to put this into perspective because there are thousands upon thousands of people who were there. And out of all of the thousands of people who are there, they just happened to come to the enemy camp to find out Gideon's purpose. And Gideon's purpose was to win the war. That was his purpose. But he needed to have a Porah with him. And God-ordained Porahs will encourage and support you for your assignment. See, even though in this text, Porah didn't do a lot of talking, but you have to understand that I'm pretty sure some conversation was going on. And God didn't call Porah out by name haphazardly. God does everything right. So he's intentional about where he is and who he is with. And then Purah was Gideon's witness. And God sends the right people to witness what only God can and will do in your life. See, that's one of the powerful things about God. God will make sure all the right people are right there at the right time to witness what God will be glorified about. See, God was getting all the glory in this situation. And he had to make sure he had the right person to bear witness, and not only just bear witness, but to see how God would be glorified. And the last thing is, everyone isn't assigned to your life. Yeah. But those who are will always be called by name. Listen, the powerless are powerful, because in this situation, we have a powerless man who is a servant. His name is Purah. He seems like he doesn't have a major purpose in life, but he has a major assignment. And that assignment is to be connected to someone who's a little bit afraid. But God connects two people together, despite who they think they are, to make them a witness and to make them a powerful leader. And the beautiful thing about it is that God called them by name. God called Gideon to be the leader of his people, and God called Purah to be the servant in the assignment for a season. Listen, Judges chapter 7 is amazing. The story is amazing. But the beautiful thing is, sometimes the people who you think are powerless are really powerful, because they're always connected to God for a greater purpose than you can even fathom or understand, because God is intentional and strategic. And if you think that God doesn't know you or what you're going through or who you're connected to, just remember this: you are called by name. I love you all dearly. I hope to see you all next week, and join me for another Oak Seed study session. Have a blessed evening. Good night.